Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if you could stand if you're able, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance this time. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, as you might have noticed, we have several council members that are missing this evening. Some of them are out of town, and then we also, some are sick. So we only have the ability to have 2 people call in. So, but everybody would like to have been here, and the ones that our operation is that we only have 2 that could actually call in this evening. If we could have a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pape.
Here.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Here.
Councilmember Hands.
Here.
Councilmember Caldwell. Here. Councilmember Leahy.
Here.
Councilmember Neal. Here. Councilmember Ryder.
Here.
Councilmember Silvers. Councilmember Yodrich.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, at this time, we have public items. Members of the public are encouraged to use this time to make comments about matters that do not appear on the agenda. Comments about items on the regular agenda will be taken up as each item is considered. I have one person that I know wants to talk about something on the legislative agenda, and that's the only individual I currently have on the list. Is there anyone else out there that has not signed in that has something they'd like to bring before the City Council this evening? Okay, I see none, and we will take the other one up when we get to legislative agenda. Okay. The next item on our agenda this evening is the consent agenda, and all items listed under the heading are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which case that item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Okay, I think we have 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone would like to have removed? Okay. I see nothing where anyone wants anything removed. I would entertain a motion. Councilmember Hands.
I move that the council approve consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, go ahead.
We can't see our
Yodrich.
faces. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell. Aye. Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal. Aye. Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
7-0.
7-0. Okay, our next item of business this evening is the election of the council president and the vice president. A memo has gone out in reference to those 2 positions. We are dictated to elect those positions every 2 years. At this point, do you have anything, Mr. Engel, you would like to add to that before I call to see if anyone's interested in those positions?
I don't have anything to add, Mayor.
Okay. I think we will deal with the president's position at this time. Any member of the council that is interested in the position of council president, please indicate so and tell us why you are the person you think for that job.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to nominate someone, if possible.
Okay, you may nominate if you would like.
I'd like to nominate Christine Hands. She has been serving as council president for the last 2 years, as well as in the interim, and I think it would be good to keep a stable council leadership member in place while we're still fresh in this transition of power to a new mayor and a new council.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Yodrich. I assume are you interested? I don't know that we necessarily need a second for that, but okay. Councilmember Hands, are you interested in that position, and tell us why you're the best person for the job?
Oh, and tell you I'm the best person? Because I'm the only one? No, I feel like I have the experience and willingness to back you up, and that's mostly what the job of being council president is all about.
Okay, thank you. Having heard that, are there anybody else interested, and you may nominate yourself if you're interested in the council president position? Okay, I see no one else, and I hear no one on the phone. Madam Clerk, would you
Yes.
like to?
I will hand out index cards. Obviously, we only have one candidate, but we typically do this as a written ballot, so you'll write down the person. And the folks that are on the phone are actually going to text me their votes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yes, please put your,
Put your name on the ballot.
on there on the ballot, yes.
Just make sure it's not for president when you do that.
You just hand them down. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, thank you. With 7 votes, Councilmember Hands is our new council president.
Okay, thank you. Round of applause here for Councilmember Hands. Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And for those in the audience, the council president does fill in for the mayor in the event that I'm gone and conducts duties in the absence of the mayor. We will move on to the vice president position, and I would entertain anyone that's interested. Councilmember Hands,
I would like to make a nomination,
make a nomination, okay?
and I would like to nominate Whitney Yodrich in that she has expressed an interest in this job.
Okay. Whitney Yodrich, okay, who has been expressed as an interest, or Whitney, are you interested in that
true.
position? Okay.
Yes.
Tell us why you are the best person for that position.
She didn't have to, I'm the only one.
Well,
I'd
we
like to
don't-
serve,
We think that. We don't know that for sure.
well, so far. We can circle back if
Right.
There we go.
necessary.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate you stepping forward. I don't think we need a second for that. Madam Clerk, if we could have the ballots,
Yep.
please.
Your name on there, nominating on there also, please.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to spell it, just put Councilmember Y. Turn that thing off. Let me turn this down.
Okay, unanimously with 7 votes, Councilmember Yodrich will be our new council vice president. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Councilmember Yodrich. Thank you for volunteering for those positions. Okay, our next item itself would be the public hearing. As Director Dyer, do you want to handle that?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Brian Dyer, Community Development Director. It's going to work. This item, and I believe the three following it, are all related. As the mayor mentioned, this is also a public hearing portion of this as well. What this is, I have a presentation that's going to cover all those items, get you an overview of the whole project, and then following that, you all have a public hearing on one specific portion of that item. And then following that public hearing, and obviously any questions you have of staff or the applicant, a number of votes are in line for this whole project because they are all interrelated. And what we're discussing this evening is 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway. It's a redevelopment project for a Chipotle restaurant. I think we're all familiar with it. It is the current site of a vacant Taco Bell restaurant. So again, myself will be doing quite all the presentations, so I'll be up here for a few minutes, so I apologize for being up here all that time. Chris Engel, City Administrator, has also been part of this, as well as Joe Serrano with Kutak Rock, our bond counsel, have also had a big part in this. So at any point in time, either one of those two gentlemen may step in and add some clarification or some corrections to my comments and presentations. So with that off and running, with a little bit of an overview of how we got here. So first of all, city received a tax increment financing application, a TIF application, from the property owner and developer of the property at 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway. Property owner, Merriam North Bell LLC is the property owner. And in response to that, on November 8th, the city council approved a resolution setting December 13th as the date for the public hearing on the amended I-35 TIF redevelopment district plan. And what that amendment was to add a new project plan area. And I'll go into a little bit more in depth of that here a little bit further in my presentation. So that's what that amendment to the district was, to add a new project plan area. Project plan area N as in Nancy. So on December 22nd, council approved a funding agreement with the developer to cover the city's costs related to reviewing their tax increment financing application. On December 1st, Planning Commission, per state statutes, had a finding that the 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway redevelopment project plan for project area N as in Nancy is consistent with the intent of the Merriam Comprehensive Plan 2040, the city's comp plan. Following that, on December 13th, council conducted a public hearing and approved the amended I-35 redevelopment district plan, again, creating project area N. And then following that, council approved a resolution setting January 24th, today, as the date for the public hearing on the redevelopment project plan for that area, for project area N as in Nancy. January 5th, Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on the rezoning and preliminary development plan for Chipotle. I'm going to stop here real quick, kind of remind everybody, we have two things going here. We have the tax increment financing side, the TIF side of projects like this. And then we have the planning and zoning side of things. That's the typical zoning, development plan, stuff like that. And what staff tries to do is get those to meet up and come to you all on the same evening, which is what we're doing this evening. So your planning commission handles a lot of the heavy lifting on the planning side of things. And so that's what they had on January 5th. They did the public hearing for the planning side of things, for that project plan. And then they also unanimously recommend approval of that rezoning and development plan, and also approved the associated final plat that went along with that planning development plan. So finally, we get to tonight. So again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to give a presentation on the overall project, so all the different items that are involved with this project. Following that presentation, you have an opportunity to answer questions of staff as well as the applicant. And also say, if at any point in time during this presentation you have a question on me, please feel free to interrupt me and ask. Following the question and answer session, there'll be the public hearing on just the redevelopment project plan for project plan N. So that's just the TIF plan. As I mentioned earlier, your planning commissions had the public hearing on the planning side of things. And then following that public hearing and closing of the hearing, there'll be a number of different votes that will be on your agenda. The first one will be to waive the first reading of the ordinance that adopts the project plan for project area N. And the reason we waive the first ordinance is really for a couple reasons. First of all, obviously, this has been on your all's agenda a number of different times, so you've had plenty of time to look at it and to review it. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we try to get these all to marry up at the same council meeting. And so in order to make sure that everything passes and goes through, you'll need to waive the first reading of that ordinance. Following that, the next thing is to motion to approve the ordinance that adopts that project plan. Per state statute, that requires 2/3 affirmative votes from the council, so 6 positive votes from the council to pass that ordinance. Next will be to consider approval of a redevelopment agreement, an RDA, with the developers, Merriam North Bell, represented by Block and Company. And then there'll be a motion to concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval of the rezoning and development plan. That requires 5 affirmative votes because that's an ordinance. And then the last thing is going to be to consider accepting easements and rights-of-way dedicated by the Chipotle First Plat. So that's kind of the agenda for this evening. I'm going to dive into and get a little bit more in depth on each one of these items. So the first one is the city state statute requirement presentation on the project plan for Area N, as in Nancy. Again, I-35 redevelopment district, I think we're all familiar with it, runs from 75th Street to Johnson Drive along I-35. It's outlined on the screen in red. The TIF district is kind of, as I like to say, the 35,000-foot view of the area. And then as we get drilled down closer, that 10 to 15,000-foot view of the area, we start getting down into the specific project areas. You see those on the screen right now. We have, within our TIF district, we have A through N as in Nancy on different project plan areas. I'm going to focus on 2 of them. This one right here, this is M as in Mary. This is the one that the council added back in 2021, and I want to make sure we understand. We added in territory, we added in property for that one, so we added and made the TIF district larger. So that occurred in 2021. And then what we're talking about this evening specifically is this right here, N as in Nancy. That was already in the TIF district, but with the amendment, the council simply made it a project plan area. And the establishment of a project plan area is one of the many steps it takes in order to do any kind of TIF financing with a developer. So again, the public hearing is specifically on the project plan for the area N, that's in red there. So zooming in a little bit closer to it, I think we're all familiar with the site. It's at the northwest corner of Slater and Shawnee Mission Parkway. Side of the vacant Taco Bell. I think it's been vacant since 2015 when they moved down to north of IKEA. So what's the project plan say? Like I said earlier, TIF district plans are a little bit more general. Project plans get a little bit more specific. And kind of the most important point and the most salient point that's in the project plan is this right here, where it talks about what is appropriate for area N. It says a commercial development consisting of 2 to 5,000 square foot building with the associated parking facility and necessary infrastructure. And a couple of things I'd like to point out on this is, first of all, that this is not specific to any developer. While we have one before you this evening who's requesting this, if this project plan is approved, any developer, if this one decides not to go forward, could step up and pick up the project plan and continue going forward with it. And that kind of leads me into my next comment, would be that denial of the project plan this evening really would set this back quite a bit. It'd be very difficult to pick it up, back up, and approve the project plan because there's state statute required notifications. Obviously, as you saw earlier, as I ran through the process, it's taken us a number of months to get here. Denial of the project plan at this point in time would be very difficult to pick it up later. Again, require a lot of notifications. A couple other comments on this. This is not committing to making any TIF payments at this point in time. This is not the document. It will be the next thing that I cover that does that. We are not looking to do any TIF bonds. That's where that's where the city issues bonds to make a TIF payment to developer. Certainly not looking to do any of that. We're actually looking to do a very short term with this project plan. Again, I'll explain that to you here in just a second. Again, that's kind of the real quick rundown of what the project plan is. And this, again, will be what you'll have your public hearing on. I'm going to pause right there in case anybody has any questions about the project plan.
Any council members have any questions for Director Dyer?
So
I see
going on
none,
to the
Director.
next article. The next step will be, the next vote will be to consider a redevelopment agreement, an RDA with Merriam North Bell. This is the document that, if you all approve and ratify, sets out conditions and payments to TIF payments, tax increment financing payments, to a developer, provided that they perform in the way in which the document describes. So First thing to note is that the TIF reimbursement is capped. TIP reimbursement for eligible expenses is capped at $300,000. Just want to note that, obviously, to get there, a lot of back and forth happens between the city and developer. I will say that that is not the number they asked for first. That's been back and forth and significantly less. However, the developer does feel that that's a number that they can work with in order to get this project going. So, and as I mentioned earlier, have a very short expiration date, essentially 2 years. So the expiration date on it is December 1st, 2023. The first half payment, or $150,000, will be dispersed when the existing building is demolished. The second half, or the remaining amount, would be dispersed when opened as a Chipotle restaurant. And there is 2 significant clawback features within that RDA. The first one is that if it is not operational as a Chipotle by December 1st, 2023, the developer must remit the first disbursement back to the city. So if it's not a Chipotle by 2023, they have to pay back the $150,000 for the demo. And then the last one, I think everybody heard the council loud and clear when they had concerns about property taxes not being paid before TIF disbursements are made. So the last one that I will point out here is that no disbursement will be made to Merriam North Bell or any of its affiliates if they are not current on property taxes by June 1st of this year. So again, as I mentioned earlier, this is the document that commits the city to making TIF payments, provided that the developer performs in the way the document is laid out. So I will stop there for any questions.
Any questions this time?
Yeah, this is Councilmember Neal.
Okay, Councilmember Nell, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to just kind of clarify the last thing you just said. In the section 502 of the RDA, you just mentioned it talks about, uses the word the developer or any affiliate of the developer has paid all taxes that are passed due as of this agreement. For all property it owns within the district, which is capitalized, is the district meaning the I-35 TIF district, or is it meaning just the project area?
The TIF district. It is the I-35 TIF district.
And does any affiliate include the entity that owns the Kmart property?
That is our understanding, yes.
Okay. And has there been any further payments made on the taxes that are back taxes due on that property?
On the Kmart property or on the Taco Bell property?
The Kmart property.
I do not believe so.
But your belief then would be that this would require the owners of the Kmart property to become current, since they are an affiliate of the developer of the Taco Bell site?
If, before they have a TIF disbursement, they would have to be current by June 1st of this year.
Right, on the Kmart property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's
Mhm.
what I wanted to know, because obviously this has been something I've been concerned about over the months that we've been talking about this project, so thank you.
No, certainly, certainly.
Anyone else? I see no other questions, Director.
So now we're going to transition out of the TIF aspects of it and go into the zoning aspects of it next. So on the rezoning, again, this is the items that were heard by the Planning Commission on January 5th. We were talking about the Taco Bell property, which you see right up here on your screen at 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway. Applicant submitted a rezoning request from, it's right now has split zoning, has C1 and C2. They submitted a rezoning request to go to Planning and Development General. And the purpose of that was to give the opportunity for them, the developer, to really set their own boundaries in regards to setbacks and stuff like that. As I mentioned before, kind of in exchange for that, the city gets the ability for a higher level review from architectural side and also from landscaping side of things. So kind of set the stage as to what we're looking at on the development plan. This is the current existing conditions and also shows the area that is proposing to be demoed. A couple important things I want to show here is, and probably the main important part is, obviously they're planning on demoing the building as well as the parking area in here. And then we're all familiar with the site that has 2 entrances currently. They're proposing to remove one of the entrances from there. That's very important from the city's perspective in regards to access management. Obviously, more points onto a major street like that increases congestion. So they are committing to take away one of the access points to the site. Obviously, as we are all very familiar with, the Shawnee Mission Parkway is part of the state highway system, so KDOT has a lot of say and a lot of influence, and perhaps a lot of control over the site. So KDOT has been in constant communication with the developer about the location of that entrance point. So as I'm going through here and I'll show you the development plan they have proposed, it is very likely that that entrance point is going to move further to the west as the developer continues negotiations with KDOT. So here is the proposed development plan. Again, here is the entranceway that they propose to keep. As I just mentioned, this is the entranceway that developer and KDOT are in discussion with about moving it further to the west, getting it further away from Slater. Another thing of access management that's difficult to see here is that they're proposing to connect with the property to the west. Again, this will provide another opportunity for access to this property without having to use Shawnee Mission Parkway. Also provide the opportunity, if that property to the west, the Shell Station, were to redevelop, we could have a discussion about access management also with the Shell Station, since we already have the beginning of a frontage street there. So that's kind of big on the access management part. And then also want to talk about stormwater. And again, as we chat about that $300,000 number on the TIF side of things, kind of some of the things that $300,000 goes for is obviously the demo of the building, but also remediation of the stormwater conditions on the site right now. Currently, the site stormwater has no on-site stormwater system. So currently, the site's stormwater, really kind of the front portion of the site drains just via the sheet flows, via the parking lot and driveways out to Shawnee Mission Parkway. And then the backside flows out a flume. If anybody's ever been over there or like to go over there now that I talked to you about this, you'll see it. There's a flume right here that sends the water out across property that's owned by Johnson County Library. This property, Taco Bell, was developed in the mid-90s, so it was not developed by this developer. So this is a condition that they inherited. But it is right now transmitting water across property they do not own, property that we don't believe they have any kind of agreements to transmit the water over there. So one of the big things and one of the big conditions the city had in the redevelopment of this property was that there would be an on-site stormwater system that would capture the water and put it into the city's storm sewer, which is exactly what's happening here. It comes down across, captures it here, and then goes into a city storm box that is right there. So again, a number of big benefits that the city sees from this: access management and also stormwater management. And then the next big benefit is, again, if you're familiar with the site, you know that it does not have a lot of landscaping. So one of the major requirements and discussions that we had with the developer was landscaping on site. They have provided the required number of street trees for both Slater as well as Shawnee Mission Parkway. And they've also added a number of low-level plantings along the parking lot, and particularly out front here in front of the building, where there also is going to be outdoor seating and things like that. And then the last thing is the actual architecture of it. Again, low, sleek, modern type of architecture, mostly with ephes. There is a little bit of corrugated metal and color in there in the red. Quite a bit of glazing, pretty big storefront, so a lot of glass will be facing out onto Slater and Shawnee Mission Parkway. Also, the Chipotle signage fits well within the requirements for the city signs standards, so it fits well within that. So just kind of to wrap up the rezoning and development plan, again, all the information about the rezoning is in your packet, including golden factors and other items that are to be considered. But Planning Commission held the public hearing on this item back on January 5th. There were no public comments at the hearing. I think it's important to note that conditions of approval that are on this and are also within your ordinance One of the big ones is to recommend removing the following allowable uses within that plan unit development. That is something that within a plan unit development general, the Plan Commission and City Council can actually eliminate some uses. So 3 of them that are on there that are being recommended to be removed from this site is automobile sales and service, packaged liquor store, and automobile service station. So that essentially means that if this was ceased to be a Chipotle, those are things that could not go back in there unless somebody came back and petitioned the city to add those back in. Again, staff recommended approval with conditions, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval with conditions as well. Then the last item I have for this is the plat. Very briefly, this is the Merriam Chipotle first plat. It comports with the preliminary development plan that I just showed you. Probably the thing to note here is it does provide the required perimeter utility easements for it. And again, the Planning Commission did unanimously approve the plat. So with that, I'm to the point now, I'll be happy to answer any questions you all have. The applicant is here as well. They would be happy to answer any questions you might have before you open up your public hearing.
Brian, I had one question, and I believe you already stated it. I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly. For example, they demo the building, 8 months from now, decide not to build a Chipotle back. They would have to return the initial demolition portion of the funds back to the city, or back to the TIF district.
Correct. If
Okay.
it is not Chipotle by December 1st, 2023, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I thought you'd said that.
Any other questions? No questions on the phones? Okay.
With that, you can open
We're
your
ready to open the public
hearing. And, take your public comments and close your public hearing, and I will come back up here and walk you through and go through the remainder part of the things that need to be occur with this. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I always wanted to use this. I'll open the public hearing. Okay. Does anyone from the public, would they like to address this topic? If so, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address. I see no one rushing to the podium. Okay. Seems like we have no one from the public. I'll close the public meeting. That's the second time I use that.
Again, I don't think if there's any questions for me, the applicant is also, Mr. Carlo and his team right back here are the folks from Block & Company shepherding this through on the developer side of things. So this gets us to the votes for this evening. I'm going to run through those again, just to kind of refresh everybody. First one is consider waiving the first reading of the ordinance to adopt the TIF project plan, which is the next item, which is to consider approval of the ordinance adopting the project plan. Number 3 then is the redevelopment agreement with Merriam North Bell, detailing the tax increment financing for the redevelopment of 8800 Cheyenne Mission Parkway. Again, I will remind everybody that is your commitment to doing TIF funding, provided that the developer performs per the agreement. Number 4 is then the rezoning and the preliminary development plan. And then number 5 is accepting the easements and rights of way as dedicated by the plat. That, if there aren't any questions, I will take a seat.
Okay, I see no questions. I would entertain a motion for the first Councilmember Hands.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I move that the council waive the customary first reading of an ordinance adopting the redevelopment project plan for Area N, as in Nancy, located at 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilmember Yadrich.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, moving on to the second motion. I'd entertain the next motion, number 2. Anyone like to make that motion? Councilmember Hands.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council approve an ordinance adopting the redevelopment project plan for Area N located at 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilmember Yadrich.
Councilmember Yadrich, a second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, moving on to motion number 3. Who would like to make that motion? Okay. Councilmember Yadrich, were you going to make that motion?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I move the council approve a redevelopment agreement with Merriam North Bell LLC detailing the requirements for tax increment financing for allowable expenses related to the redevelopment of 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Thank you. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to motion number 4. Do I have a council member that wants to make that motion? Okay, Councilmember Hands. Back to you.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval with conditions. The rezoning of 8800 Shawnee Mission Parkway from C2 and C1 to PUDG with use restrictions and the associated preliminary development plan for a commercial building.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Yadrich.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to motion number 5. Councilmember Yadrich.
Mr. Mayor, I move the council accept the dedication of easements and right-of-way shown on the Merriam Chipotle first plat.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Shavetta.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, seems like all of those have passed. Director Dyer, you have the next item on the agenda?
I am the next item on the agenda. I need to get this. So, usually can get back to the agenda for us. If you're ready, Mayor, I'll do the next one.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please, Director Dyer.
This next item is a special, renewal of a special use permit for House of Hope. For those of you who are familiar with the House of Hope, they're located at 7040 and 7044 Antioch Road. They provide residential care for minors from age 12 to 17. For girls, it is considered a low-level facility by the state of Kansas. They had their first special use permit in 2006, and per your ordinances, they must renew every 5 years. Over that time, they've had some expansion. That new home that is there to the north on 7040 is they built that back in, I believe, 2012, 2013. A lovely addition to the facility. Their most recent renewals is done back in 2017. Per the city ordinances, the renewal of the special use permit must go through the same process as the initial approval. So your planning commission had a public hearing on this item as well at their January meeting. There were no public comments. I would like to say that a little bit of history. While I was not here in 2006, I came very shortly after that. I knew the director who did the approval in 2006, and it's really a statement to the House of Hope and how well their facility is, and that at that meeting, it was a packed house and people in the lobby. And then I took over the renewals, and each one of the renewals, there were fewer and fewer and fewer people that were at the meetings. And at the last meeting, there was nobody from the public that spoke about the House of Hope. So again, we had some positive comments from planning commissioners on the services they provide. So just kind of in conclusion, we've got, the community development is not aware of any complaints that we've received in regards to House of Hope. I did speak to the chief of police, and he said the police department has no concerns with renewal and that the police department has a good relationship with House of Hope. Obviously, COVID has limited their abilities to hold their annual meetings with neighbors as was in the original approvals. Again, since we've received no comments, it seems to be a very positive experience. One of the things staff recommends is that requirement be removed from the renewal of this special use permit. So the Planning Commission saw no problem with that and understood that that was probably, this was probably the appropriate time for that to happen. So with that, staff recommends approval of the renewal. It will be for 5 years as per your ordinances. And then also, Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the renewal of the special use permit. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I believe the applicant is here.
Councilmember Hands.
I don't have any questions, but I was here when House of Hope began, so you are very right, it was a packed house. But they have proved to be a valuable service to a lot of young ladies and have been really good neighbors, because I'm sure my constituents would let me know if that were not true. So I'm pleased.
Any other questions for Director Dyer? Okay, hearing no other questions for Director Dyer, I would entertain a motion. Councilmember Hands.
I move that the City Council concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval with conditions of the request for the approval of renewing House of Hope's existing special use permit SU-1-12.
Okay, we have a motion. I have a second. Councilmember Ryder.
Councilmember Ryder, I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Yodridge.
Aye.
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell. Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal.
Aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, looks like our next item is for the staff. I guess that'd be you, Mr. Engel.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The next item on the agenda is the to consider approval of the 2022 legislative agenda. Each year, at least the years since I've been here, the City Council has approved a legislative platform to share with our state reps in Topeka to assert some stances on issues of the day that are important to residents of Merriam. We have used several different methods of formulating that, where there was a period of time where we would just adopt a county platform, and the county, through conversations with the cities, would put together a platform that the cities would then just essentially bless, so we were all sending a common message to the Johnson County delegation. As the Johnson County delegations become perhaps a little bit more fractured than it had been in the past, That's kind of fallen by the wayside. So what has happened in more cities than none in Johnson County is that we've adopted, or at least we've started as a reference point, the League of Kansas Municipalities. And then in conversations with what the county does, what our neighbors do, we build our own platform. Generally what we've done since I've been here is we look at what we did last year, what legislation has changed, what issues we think actually might get some traction in Topeka. And in conversations with Stuart Little, our legislative lobbyist in Topeka, we put together a platform that's asserts a common theme with our neighbors, but also has some things that might clearly be important to us more so than our neighbors. The number one item being SITA, sales tax on auto sales. That's something that clearly benefits us more so than, say, a Shawnee or Lennox or Overland Park. So we do have a couple items that are our own. So generally what we've done in the past is we've just taken the previous year's legislative agenda and then for reference kind of talk about what has changed. That's how I'm going to approach it this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions. There are items that are on here that I have received some feedback. There might be some questions. There might be items that we want to remove. We can absolutely do that in any manner that you see fit. We'll start with the first item, which is in your action form, collection of internet sales tax. That was a 21 item. We removed that item. That's simply just because it passed as part of the tax bill last year. The pandemic response, we removed the pandemic response as a standalone item. Pandemic is still mentioned in mental health as an item. So we still want to make sure that clearly the mental health aspect of the pandemic could linger for a lot longer than the physical health, I guess would be the medical health part of it. So we removed that, again, as a standalone item. Tax spending lid, we edited and just removed some tax lid language because of SB 13 that passed last year that eliminated the tax lid, if you'll recall. So due to legislation that really didn't need tax lid language. Sales tax on food, we edited it based on conversations with Stuart Little and what we thought the governor's bill was going to look like. I will tell you that our statement, for the most part, echoes the governor's bill. There is a difference in the governor's bill in terms of local sales tax not being allowed on farmers market items that we in Northeast Johnson County through Stuart Little, who represents all of the Northeast Johnson County cities, have shared some testimony in Topeka, just simply to say, hey, we appreciate the bill and we're in support of the bill, but we still believe in local spending and local taxing decisions. Not that that's necessarily a bad idea, but it usurps our authority, of our home rule authority, to make those decisions at home. So sales tax on food has been edited. Comprehensive transportation plan, Stuart asked if he suggested that we add economic development high usage areas. He felt like the way that it was phrased before might exclude funding that might come to Merriam because of our size when you don't take into account, or if you don't take into account, that we are a high usage area. Our segment of I-35 is the most heavily traveled section of highway in the state. So he felt making sure that we include that in there as a high usage area would not preclude us from any sort of special funding. What's next? Mental health, we edited that based on what Stuart Little suggested, and that was that there is a new 988 federal suicide hotline. He felt like we should include that in there, that funding would go to that. And then there's mobile crisis response service that the state is, I guess, starting to prop up. And so that we would like to see proper funding go towards that. As you're all aware, we have co-responders potentially working on a second co-responder. Mental health is becoming a growing issue in all of our communities, and we'd like to see state funding go towards that. Prevention of alternative property valuation, which is our dark store theory, and then the next item was tax policy. Those were both 2021 items. We've combined those two because we really felt like they made sense being combined together in terms of tax policy, because that's really what dark store theory is it essentially changes tax policy. So those are the things that's 2022 relative to 2021. I'm happy to answer any questions. There were some small changes in there. I changed, I did this, I changed medical marijuana to just legalized marijuana. That was something that I think all the intel that we're getting, medical marijuana likely is going to have a very high probability of an upvote. So distinguishing medical marijuana from legalized marijuana, we just felt like they're the same. Once you legalize it for medicinal purposes, it's legalized marijuana, so let's not split hairs. Let's just make a statement on medical marijuana. I'm sorry, legalized marijuana. And I think that is the biggest change in terms of language. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the agenda or additional items that you may have. I didn't receive any additional item suggestions. I received some emails in the last couple days about just clarification of items, but I'm happy to answer any questions or take any suggestions or edits.
Any questions for Mr. Engel?
This is Councilmember Neal. I do have a comment.
Okay, Councilmember No, go ahead.
I recognize, first of all, I like this legislative agenda and the changes for the most part. I think these are all important issues, with one exception where I personally disagree with some particulars of the asset forfeiture. I have some problems because essentially I believe that asset forfeiture is a process that occurs absent adjudication in court for the crime, and I believe that we should be striving for a better process, and I think people deserve their day in court before their assets are seized. But I respect the fact that that is probably not a widespread opinion, but I felt like I should say that I'm still going to vote for the legislative agenda. Overall, it's a good one. Thank you.
Okay, would you like to address that, Mr. Engel, or?
I was just going to say that we've had some questions about that from other council members. That was something that was brought up. We can strike that. I think that the laws of Kansas in terms of asset forfeiture are one thing. The way that we actually administer it is a little bit different in terms of due process. The onus of this being on the agenda was really rooted in the fact that asset forfeiture is a thing, and I think the prevailing opinion is that it currently isn't going anywhere. I think it picks up steam every year for there being conversations, but it was really about who gets after there's been some adjudication, if there's been adjudication, which there always is in Merriam, who gets the assets. There was a period of time where the county and the state had talked about taking those assets. So if there's something, if a crime occurs in a local unit of government, that anything that's seized, the state or the county would take, that is something that we were really trying to combat with this statement. So the statement's only been in the policy, I think, for 3 years. And so there has been other people that have had conversations about that and questions about that also. So we can remove it, we can modify it, we can change the verbiage in it. I think those are...
Is the language that we have the same as what LKM is using? Is that where that came from?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall if it's the same language. I'm sure that's probably where it originally came from. I don't know if it's modified since then.
And that's the League of Kansas Municipalities, sorry.
It is.
Okay.
And I guess I'll say two things. One, I concur that I think it should be, due process should be, obviously done anytime we would take someone's property. That is occurring, as the chief has indicated, in Merriam. So I guess that and the fact that I would hate to see if we don't do this, that money, any assets that might be forfeited would go to the state or the county. If if it happens in Merriam, we should get that. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm concerned about striking it.
Yeah, it's up to the council. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember Neal.
Yeah, I understand the second sentence probably needs to stay in there. resident that's seizing the property. That part I agree with. I just don't agree with the overall premise of this. So I would be happy to see that this changed in some fashion.
Okay.
That's the will of the council. We can come up with that something, what I'm hearing is, as long as asset forfeiture exists in the state,
We want the money.
we want the money?
Yeah. Show me the money.
Something to, I mean, is that,
Yeah, I'd support a change like that. I agree with a lot of the concerns that David Neal's shared, that asset forfeiture as a tool can be problematic. I had a brief conversation with Darren earlier about how it is used and how it can be used in the state of Kansas and in the city of Merriam, and helped alleviate some of those fears. I think there are some good safeguards that we have here for us, but the idea of asset forfeiture, being able to,
so neutral on asset forfeiture, just.
not a fan of asset forfeiture, but I think we have better protections than elsewhere.
I mean, the statement. The statement that you want it edited to should be neutral on asset forfeiture, just simply says if it exists.
Yeah, I would feel better about that as well.
Okay, is that,
Or maybe language, after proper adjudication and assets are forfeited, that we should get it. I throw that out there, I don't know.
yeah, we'll have to look at what proper adjudication is, but yeah, I mean, is that something that's still?
Please, chief, come forward.
So statutes control asset forfeiture and that there's always adjudication. The argument is what level of adjudication people think is the most responsible. Meaning, criminal cases require beyond a reasonable doubt. More like, so that's a high standard. Asset forfeiture is a civil case, so it's a preponderance of evidence. So basically, if you look at it from the same perspective, is that you have to be able to prove to the same level that the property that's being seized is proceeds of illegal act. It's the same level of proof that you have to make an arrest on someone, which we use as probable cause. It's not the same level to get a conviction in court, but I can put you in jail on probable cause, which is the same level of basically preponderance of the evidence in a civil case. So there is court. There is you have to go and present to a judge like any other civil hearing, and then the judge adjudicates whether or not, yes, you've made the preponderance of evidence level, and that property can be seized, or if not, you have to return it back to the person that you took it from. So that's the way it's in statute. So there is court hearings. It's just the argument is what level of court should a forfeiture or asset forfeiture take place in. So.
Okay, did you hear that, Councilmember Neal, are you good with that explanation from the chief?
This is Councilmember Neal. If possible, I'd like to kind of point out a slight distinction. I think there are issues in terms of the order of the two types of cases. I believe that in many cases the assets are forfeited before there is a criminal case. And yes, there are different levels of beyond a reasonable doubt versus preponderance of evidence. That's true. But by the same token, there are a number of cases that I'm aware of over the years where a person's assets are forfeited, they're facing criminal charges, and they do not have the funds, since their assets have been taken, to provide an adequate defense in the criminal case. I think it's perfectly reasonable to have an asset forfeiture civil hearing after there's a criminal case. And the forfeiture, I mean, there's just a variety of little things in different places. I recognize that our process may be better, but making a blanket statement before the legislature that we support asset forfeiture, however it's done, it's particularly as an important component in reducing financial gains from criminal acts when there has not been an adjudicated criminal act yet. That's my problem. I think the order needs to change.
Okay. How do the other council members feel about this? Does anybody want this removed from our list of legislative items? Do we want it modified?
Do
What's
you-
the will of the council?
Christopher, do you think you have enough direction to rewrite that and,
Not to make all council members happy, no.
okay. Then perhaps we should just pull it. It's kind of what I think.
Could we
Yeah, I
just
mean,
leave the
that's-
second
That would be my
sentence?
recommendation, is just pull it.
All right.
I mean, if it becomes an issue, we can,
It-
as we do with other issues that pop up that that aren't apparent at the beginning of the session, there's things that pop up all the time that we end up having to tell Stuart, or, I mean, sometimes we have to make trips to Topeka and go, hey, we need to testify in defense or in support of something. We can do that,
And there's a reason probably that it's the last thing on the legislative list, right?
I don't order these in importance, but.
But I'm just saying.
But, yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with pulling it if it makes everyone vote for it and pass the legislative agenda tonight,
Right.
instead of editing it to make everyone happy.
Okay, that seems like, that seems to be the will of the council. I guess, and moving forward, then, we could adopt this with the removal of that asset
Yeah,
forfeiture.
we just make a
and
motion,
Moving item, is it listed by number?
No.
No, okay. Just removing the asset forfeiture
Yeah,
portion
we
of
can
it.
do that, and we'll just monitor it, and as it comes up, depending on what the issues are and what the nuances are that get discussed, if it gets discussed, we'll make sure. Again, we want to plug into the law enforcement piece of this and crime deterrence, but we also want to make sure that people are, it reflects the values of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. I would entertain a motion. Okay, Councilmember Leahy.
I move that we remove the asset forfeiture language from the legislative agenda for 2022.
And recommend approval.
And recommend approval as amended.
Yeah.
Sounds good. You got that? Mm-hmm. Madam Clerk? Okay. We have a motion before us, and we have a second? Okay, Councilmember Neal would like to second that. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Shavetta.
Aye.
Councilmember Hands.
Aye.
Councilmember Caldwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Leahy.
Aye.
Councilmember Neal. Councilmember Neal.
Oh, don't tell me we lost him.
Councilmember Neal, you're still with us?
Aye, sorry.
Yeah, we're voting. Are you voting yea or nay on this item?
I voted aye, I'm sorry, my mute button went off.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Neal votes aye.
Councilmember Ryder.
Aye.
Councilmember Yodrich.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I'm sorry, Mr. Crone. Could you come forward? I completely blew over this. I wish you would like wave me down or something, but Mr. Crone would like to, would you give us your name and address and talk to us about this? Hopefully that was the item you were concerned about.
Yes. Billy Crone, 6633 Wed Street. I guess I don't need to bring my words up here. I'd prepared quite a few, under the 5-minute limit, though, I promise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your considered discussion, and the result of that was exactly what I was hoping for. I think probably asset forfeiture had a good intention and a good purpose, but it just looks and feels kind of gritty and not great. And it's the opportunity to make good police look bad. I know our city's handled it very well. We have a lot of internal safeguards. We are not the problem in Merriam, but there are many cities throughout the state. And there have been examples of civil asset forfeiture ruining people's lives who were never convicted of a crime. Ruining people's businesses. And I'm happy to see that our city does not support the continuance of that. So thank you for your vote, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cronin. I apologize for not calling you up sooner. Okay, moving on, I think our next item is community development update. Director Dyer.
Evening again, just real quick. As you all know, it's grant season for us, so we've been getting that message out and been working and taking in a number of grant applications for that. I would encourage anybody who still has an idea, a thought of doing work on their home, doing perhaps some sort of energy efficiency improvement or anything like that, to contact community development and talk to David Easley about that. We still got plenty of room.
Okay. Plenty. I mean, there have been times when day 2, you were
That is
at
not one of those
capacity.
times.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The weather was not good on that day at all. So, and I would also say we are hearing from folks that it is tough to get contractors, A, to come look, and B, to make any kind of commitment to anything. So in those cases, we do, while we try to get estimates on projects, we still will say, we just need an idea of what it's going to be, how much your project's going to cost for budgetary purposes. So again, anybody that's interested in that, doing some stuff on their home, definitely getting hold of Mr. Easley, contact him. We have space available right now, but again, once it starts getting warm, that probably very likely could quickly go away. Also, working hard on doing our landlord licensing. We were sent those out and working very hard to get all our landlords up and current and going. Hospital still has some pretty big renovations they're looking at, particularly with the old tower. So we could be have a permit in for that. And as soon as it goes out, we're probably looking at a solid 18 months of renovations going on over there. And then the last thing I have is, you all know, we have a couple of Plain Sustainable Places projects out there. Been talking with the consultants. They are hoping to start doing some more outreach to the not only the committees that work with it, but also the public, hopefully in the month of February, and getting these projects wrapped up in March and April. And then also, obviously, we still also have been working on our transportation plan for pedestrians and bicyclists as well. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if the council has any of that of me.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Dyer?
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. Okay, it looks like Planning Commission draft minutes.
Those are just informational items.
Informational items,
Yep,
okay.
no actions
No
required.
action required, all right. And the same thing for the finance report. Are we going to have
Sure.
Donna come forward on that? Thank you.
The Finance Department is beginning the annual audit process. As such, before the meeting, I handed out to you communication from the city's auditors, basically letting you know that if you have any questions, concerns, feel that something just doesn't feel quite right, whatever, please feel free to contact the auditors. They would love to visit with you. It's certainly not mandatory, but they want you to know this audit's really for your benefit, and that they want you to feel comfortable calling them. The finance report was included in your packet. Just a couple of things to note. While that does say that it's December, as we go through the audit process, we will be accruing several items back to the previous year. It only includes sales tax, actual sales through October, because we get the money 2 months late, and so we won't really know 2021 sales tax numbers until February, the end of February. So keep that in mind. There is a little footnote, but the number paid to Overland Park Fire Services does not include the fourth quarter, because again, it gets accrued back, and so we just received that, and we'll be paying that shortly. It was around $650,000, and with that, I would entertain any questions that there might be about the report.
Does anyone have any questions for Donna? Okay. I
Thank you very
See no
much.
questions. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for your report. Keep that money coming in. Mr. Engel, do you have any other staff items, or?
I do. Shortly before, literally 5 minutes before I walked out the door to go on vacation, Drake Development delivered a TIF application for the Kmart site. I have not been through it yet. I was catching up all this morning, but we do have a TIF application on file. I will start to review tomorrow, and I've already talked to Mr. Serrano that he, Brian and I will start working on that and starting to crunch the numbers. And they submitted the $1,000 application check, so we assume that they're serious about continuing the conversation about the Kmart development. So I wanted to share that with council. We'll keep everyone apprised of what our assessment is as we look at it. Second one is there's a highly likely probability that the February 14th February 14th meeting will be via Zoom as COVID continues to become an issue for attendance and public health. That's a method of meeting that we can do. We can't really do a hybrid meeting, and we had to meet for the public hearing portion of today's meeting because that's how it was advertised, or we would have likely went to Zoom for tonight's meeting. But it's quite likely that on February 14th we will meet via Zoom, and we will just review the metrics and the cases of how long we're going to do that, whether it's 1 meeting or 2 meetings or 10 meetings, in reference to.
Is the plan to do Zoom until further notice?
Yes, that is the plan. I mean, unless things February 14th is a long way away. I mean, by February 14th, things might look great, and we might say, hey, why do we need to meet via Zoom? But we would anticipate at this point, plan on meeting via Zoom.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Anything else? Nope.
That's all I have. There has been questions. It's an off-agenda topic, but I have received several requests about buying PPE, or at least considering doing something with PPE. It's an off-agenda topic. I know we don't like to do off-agenda topics because it doesn't allow the public to be notified that we're doing it, but I will just tell you that there are several council members that are interested in that, if that's anything people want to consider. I would need some better direction than I have received thus far on that, if that's something that people are interested in.
I guess and I think we've kind of spoken to most of the council people in reference to this. I think Mr. Engel would need some sort of head nod or something in reference to if we want him to look further into how we might. There are a lot of things we'd have to consider in reference to how's that dispensed, how many masks. I mean, do we want to have the test as well, or some of those available?
So some of our neighboring cities have allocated funds to buy, is it at-home like rapid at-home tests and masks, or is it just masks?
Both.
So if that was something the council wanted to do we need to give you a dollar amount, a purchase order amount?
Well, here's the questions that I've written down just in anticipation of asking them at some point. If we're talking about masks and/or testing kits, how many do you want? We got 11,200 people. We got about 5,400 households, if we want to do it by that. How do you want them distributed? Should we track how they're distributed, or do we care how they're distributed? If anybody walks in the door, we just give them a handful of them. Do we want proof of residency? What total budget would you like? 11,200. If you buy 2 of anything that's $1, there's $25,000. I can only purchase up to $30,000 without some sort of approval of council. In terms of source of funding, we have ARPA funds. The funding source is the least of my concerns or questions. It's just simply how would you like this administered?
Do we know by any chance at this point, Mr. Engel, how other dispensaries been done at other cities that have already allocated their funds? Do they have a plan? I'm not for reinventing the wheel if somebody's figured this out. But.
Yeah, I can ask them. I do not. I generally don't suggest policy based on what our neighbors do. That's not how I choose to run Merriam. But
I understand that.
But
But if
we
they
can
have
do
a
it
good
however.
idea, I'm not against robbing it if we don't think
Yeah,
it's a
no,
good
no,
idea. We won't.
I steal from them all of the time, don't get me
Okay,
wrong.
gotcha, okay.
Yeah, I'm not above stealing from them.
Harvest, we harvest the
Yeah,
information.
yeah. No, I just steal, yeah, I mean,
Okay. Strike that from the
I will
record, Madam Clerk. Let's go.
I will say, my concern is, I don't want to sit on it for 2 weeks and then start to find tests or masks or whatever we choose 2 weeks from now,
yeah.
because the longer we wait, the less of an impact it will have.
I echo that sentiment, Jacob. I do.
But I also,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Councilmember Hans, go ahead.
Councilmember Ryder had
Oh,
her hand up.
Councilmember Ryder, go ahead.
But she
Okay,
doesn't just
she's-
blurt it out like some of us do.
Yeah, okay. Wait a minute. Come under control here.
I was just curious as to what type of masks we would be handing out if we did go forward with this. If they would be
That's a
like,
great question.
And that's to my point as well. It sounds to me like there's such a shortage, I'm not sure what we're going to be able to get a hold of. But it needs to be, we need to do N95s and we need to do the good tests if we're going to do it. And I don't know that we're
Same
going to be.
test that the federal government, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, but the
Yeah,
ones that the
the
federal
at-home
government
ones,
have,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I'm just not sure what you're going to have for availability, but my concern was if you have staff capacity in order to manage it, because I do think we need to track households,
Sure, yeah, I mean,
at least,
I don't feel like I have an option to say, no, we don't, we'll just have to
right.
figure out how to do it.
I think Councilmember Neal's been trying to say something too before.
Okay.
'cause I've been hearing,
Councilmember Neal,
his
do you have
hand.
something you need to
I've been hearing
address?
noises on the phone.
I don't know if he's clearing his throat or, Councilmember Neal, you have the floor.
A little bit of both. I'm sorry, my voice is kind of messed up. Having obviously just had COVID or in the middle of it, I do think this is very contagious. I do see some value, particularly in providing testing, or providing some way for people to get a quick test. There's a fairly significant delay in many cases of getting a test. The question also becomes, is it feasible for the city of Merriam to get a supply of test kits? I think on the masks, I think honestly, if people don't know where to get a mask, they're probably not going to wear one. But I do think the tests are important if we can do them. But if we can't do them, then we're probably wasting our time there too. Is there a way that staff could look into the availability of them and then get a sense of the council based on that information being distributed to us email, and then the staff can make the decision with some feedback from the council? It should be done quickly, I think.
I mean, yeah, we can do the research tomorrow. I mean, I don't even know what they cost, to be honest with you, I don't.
Right.
They're about $10 a piece in packs of 2.
And how many do you want, 20,
Retail,
22,000?
you know, like, I mean, you can use the USPS as like a starting point, you know, where it's like they want a certain amount per address, and that's your amount. And, you know, check the list off the addresses. I'm not saying I have a plan worked out in my head. I'm just
5,200.
throwing ideas
Yeah.
out here, right?
Right.
But have people come to the community center, city hall, and then I don't know the right number per household. I would think like we could see what makes sense for Merriam, because the same thing here might not make sense for what makes sense in Prairie Village or Overland Park or something like that, you know?
So what, you as a council determine what makes sense for Merriam? What makes sense for Merriam?
I would like to add one thing, that people with health insurance can get reimbursed for 8 tests per person on their policy. But what I'm afraid of is people who either can't afford that out of pocket right away, and who may not be able to find them at CVS or Walgreens or Walmart or wherever tests are sold. That if the city had some available to give, ideally to residents,
Sure.
via proof of residency or address, that's the thing that I would like to see the city take a step towards acquiring. Is it like as many tests as you can buy with $30,000? Or I guess I'm kind of, Do we need to approve you a certain amount to buy if we say
Well,
buy all
I
tests?
can purchase anything under 30,000. My legal spending authority per council policy is $30,000. So I can go spend $30,000 tomorrow for whatever. But I need to know, do you want masks or do you just want testing? I mean, I can go buy $30,000 worth of testing. If you want to give me $50,000 worth of spending, I can buy $50,000 worth of whatever. But again, I don't know what they cost, so I can't give you, like, this is generally
That's
why we
fair.
don't bring stuff up to the agenda when I don't have time to.
And
Counsel-
we do have the capability of calling a special meeting, and if we're going to meet via Zoom, we could probably accommodate giving you that kind of authority
Sure.
in a special meeting.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Ryder, go ahead.
I wanted to say I do agree with Councilmember Neal that people who are not wearing masks already are probably not going to wear them if we give them to them for free anyway. I do want to bring up a consideration that there are some residents who are more at risk of contracting COVID over others, and so are we going to, it's just a thought, are we going to allow them more testing kits because they are at risk constantly versus people who stay home all the time and don't ever have interaction with anyone?
I mean, I stayed home literally all the time and left the house to go to work one day, and I got COVID, so I avoided it for 2 years. But I will say, in just information-wise, Chris, I was looking at the Mark Housing Data Hub thing that they showed us last week, and it looks like, and this is 2019 data, but 70+%, almost 80% of the city is a 1 or 2 person household, according to that. So maybe 4 doesn't make sense, based on the needs of what we
Maybe
have.
for what doesn't make
Maybe
sense.
4 boxes, like they're doing for like the USPS and I think Prairie Village and other places.
I couldn't find that Prairie Village had really even.
I
put-
think they just earmarked the money.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
so what are they, yeah, that's kind of my point, was like, well, what are
Right.
they even doing with it? But I was just looking at Roland Park, and they allowed 1 testing kit per household, and you had to prove residency at City Hall.
Yep.
That's easy. Is that what you want?
I would love for you to do some research on what they cost, and we can call a special meeting, because I think I would rather give you time to research and come to us with real data, I guess, is my point. And I'd rather call a special meeting to make sure we are doing the right thing.
The other option would be that we say you have your $30,000 and go forward, and then if we need to come back to us with a special meeting, we can.
Okay.
Because I would rather, I don't want perfection to get in the way of progress. I would rather get tests and maybe somebody goes home with 1 too many tests rather than not get tests for anybody.
Sure.
That's my feeling.
I would also point out, I also don't want $30,000 worth of tests sitting in Julie's office for the next 3 years.
Understandable. Understandable.
Because no one has asked me for a single one of them, and I have $30,000 of them now.
I couldn't find a test to save my life 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I don't know what it's like right now.
Right, and
I've been able to buy them online because I could, but I know there's people that can't afford to spend the $30 for 2 tests like I did. So, I think we should be helping our residents in some way. I don't know what that looks like. So I think I'm fine with what Chris said too. Christine said, earmarking, see what you can do with the 30,000 if we need more.
Sure, I can put together what $30,000 will buy us.
Yeah, and I'm fine with just test kits versus masks as well.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And then if
Okay.
we don't go through them all, we still have them. And if we go through them quicker in 2 weeks on the 14th or the meeting after, we can revisit it as a council, knowing what we have learned.
I think they're good for like a year too, just FYI.
The question becomes is dispersal. Are you suggesting that we mail them to the household, or that they would come in and pick them up?
Yeah,
Come and pick 'em
because
up.
you said UPS.
Well, the post USPS had this, just like this thing you went to, and the system was 4 tests per household, per address, that's it.
It's
Right.
the same one as the federal government one.
Yeah,
but I've already
right.
ordered my 4 tests.
Right, so my
And so
suggestion.
we want to supplement
No.
what the federal government's already doing.
Yes, but my suggestion is not mailing them. It was just guilt
Right.
by association, right? So
Just have them.
just have them, and you check addresses and proof of residency. So if someone hasn't changed their ID yet, you bring a utility bill, something,
And
right?
depending
Says
on-
you live at the address. If someone is fraudulent about it, I don't, like.
Sure, right.
And
Gonna
maybe if we,
Best
and
anybody.
as they've indicated to get back with us, but maybe we don't buy 30,000 to sit in Julie's office, maybe we buy 15,000, and then if we start getting low, we buy another 15,000. Maybe we don't have to buy them all.
Yeah, I don't even know where you buy them at. I
If
mean, it
there's
sounds like if
availability.
Walgreens or CVS can't get them, I don't know where we'll get
No,
them, but I'll
that's
look.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, maybe you got to order them directly from China. I don't know where they come
So
from.
at $10 a test, $30,000 will buy us 3,000 tests, according to napkin math. So that's a third of, not even a third of the Merriam residents.
But
the
the third that wouldn't have
No,
them. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And we've been able now to order from the feds, and we don't know how fast they're going to start delivering. So we are kind of behind them
Right.
anyway. I'm not sure we'll be able to be faster.
It's real easy to go through 4 tests if you think you've been exposed.
I know. I
went
bought
through a
4
bunch.
tests too.
Okay, do you have enough direction, Mr. Engel?
I got enough to come back to the council with some facts.
Some facts.
Yay.
Sounds good.
So-
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, anything else? No, nothing else from staff? Okay. No executive session this evening?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yes, Councilman Neal, go ahead.
Yeah. This may be, what you've already decided, but my suggestion is that, tonight we give the council or the staff some direction to purchase some number to have on hand at the, at City Hall while we're sort of thinking through the rest of this. One thing I don't really want to see us do is buy a bunch of tests, not have them be used, and then take them out of circulation for people that otherwise would, be able to get the tests. We need to make sure that the amount of tests that we are acquiring and thus taking out of circulation are actually going to go and be used in a timely fashion. So I certainly think that research needs to be done and get back quickly with us if need be, but possibly to go ahead and buy some amount and make available at City Hall. I recognize that also increases staff costs dealing with that, but, this is fast moving and, people need access to tests before. If they've been exposed, they've got a really good likelihood of catching the current Omicron version. And so having a test quickly available is really important. Some people may not be able to afford it or they feel like they can't afford it. So it'd be nice to have some quickly. And so I would kind of propose a 2-pronged approach. Get some tests quickly, put that out on our website, and then do a little bit more in-depth look at costs and the availability of the test kits, and then decide how to proceed step 2.
Okay. Mr. Engel has heard that, and he can purchase up to 30,000 on his own recognizance, so. Councilman Ryder, go ahead.
I would also like to pose the question of how comfortable is staff with distributing these products?
You're
If
gonna have
we've
sick
got-
people that are coming up wanting them. Yeah, I know.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I don't think you're gonna give us the option to say no, so we're gonna do what you tell us to do. It's your call. As I've shared with each of you that have asked, I've received 0 requests for a mask or a test. They're provided by the federal government, by the county, by the state. No one has requested one from me, so this is not something I've looked into because no one other than you have asked us to do it. So that's why I can't provide you with any additional information or logistics of how we would do it. That's why I'm asking. If it was a problem that I was aware of or I thought that was something that wasn't being serviced in our community, I probably would have looked into it by now. So again, that's
And that's my concern, is not overbuying and then sitting there and not being utilized.
Same
to it.
concern I have, yeah.
Right. Because I've already gotten my 4 I've ordered them anyway.
Sure.
but, okay. Well, you're, check that out and get back with us at that point.
We'll figure something out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Engel. Okay, at this point, I think I'm down to number 11 on my agenda, which calls for adjournment. I would entertain a motion. Mr. Leahy,
I move we adjourn.
we have a motion.
We'll need a second.
And a second. We have a second, and Councilmember Ryder.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
All in
Clerk.
favor?
I
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.